Competition is a funny thing. I think most people compare themselves to others and find that that is competition, like doing better than the other person, keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of thing. That's never been me, ever. I couldn't care what other people do.
Yeah.
But I know what my goals are and I want to achieve them. Success is happiness. That is all that we're ever striving for.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Need to Succeed podcast, where we have incredible conversations with phenomenal guests just to understand what is the need to succeed. Because here's the thing, two people can go through the exact same situation. One person decides because of that situation, they can no longer achieve the things that they want in life. The other person decides because of the exact same situation, they have to achieve everything they've ever dreamt about. Same situation, different outcomes. What is the mindset of the successful people? That is exactly what we look to uncover on this podcast. And today we have an absolutely incredible guest. We have got the CEO of Pathak Yoga, which is a corporate health and well-being provider. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Bassanti Pathak.
Hi, Ibrahim. Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here, man. Really, really excited to have you here because, I mean, hopefully, we get some chance to touch on this because I really want to get to understand your journey of, how you started off, how you got to where you are today. But actually, what you guys do, as a business, what you do, I'm really, really interested in it because this is something that I've, tried to implement in my life over these years. But I would say continuously failing forward.
I like that.
But we've got a tradition on this podcast. Everything else is just complete free flow, right? But we've got two set questions, which is the very first question and the last question. And then everything else we're just gonna freestyle it and see where we end up. But the first question is, what does success actually mean to you?
How long do you want the answer to be?
Hey, listen, we've got time. We've got time.
We've got 15
if that's
minutes.
all we get to talk about today, then it's all right.
Okay, in a nutshell, actually I can put that in one word. Success is happiness. That is all that we're ever striving for. Success is happiness. Everything else is bullshit. Because back to what you literally just said, right? Two people go through the exact same situation. One person takes this out of it, the other person goes that way. Why is that? Because we are who we are based on everything that we've experienced in life, but also based on what came before us, what our mother went through when she was pregnant with us, what our ancestors went through. All of that makes us have a certain brain that we're born with. And then everything that happens to us along the way will shape us in a certain way. So some people start from here. They'll find it, take Mount Everest. If you're climbing Mount Everest, but you're halfway up and that's where you were born, you don't have to climb as hard. You don't have to climb as fast. But if you're starting at the bottom or you're really far away, you're nowhere near Everest, then you have to make your way there. That's kind of like the journey towards happiness, if you will. And anything else that you think anything else that you think success is simply based on you having not got there yet, right? It's start with, you've got a child, right? I hope you shower that child with so much love. And I'm sure your daughter is the best and she gets everything that she needs from you. But if a parent doesn't do their job and doesn't give the validation to that child is going to grow up and seek that validation elsewhere and never outgrow that need to be validated, right? And everyone has that a little bit, right? First, it's the parents. Once you realize that your parents are happy with you and you can do no wrong and they'll always say, yeah, you did very great, And as children, that's normal. At some point, you outgrow that. And maybe then you realize your parents aren't perfect. You're not perfect to them. They can also criticize you and say, maybe what you did there wasn't right. But if you do that too soon, that's a problem. That will leave a mark on your brain and let you know that you haven't got what you have wanted in life, right? So on to what are your teachers thinking of you? You want their affirmations as well. Next thing is your professors if you go to university, or your boss if you go to if you go straight to have a job. What do your peers think of you? It's all about wanting validation. And once you've got that validation from one person, you move on to the next one, right? So it goes on and on and on like that until you get to a point when you realize, I don't need that external validation anymore. That is one way to achieve success. It's the same with money. If you're born into money, you will probably not struggle. It's not going to be on your agenda. You never had to struggle for it, right? So you're not going to be thinking success means money. You might, depending on how your family handles this, if it's a growth mindset or not, right? If your family thinks that they are poor, even though they're really rich, then you will grow up thinking you're poor and you want more money. That's one way of people thinking they'll achieve success, but it isn't. So it's not the validation from the outside world. It's not the money you have. It's not the car you drive. You'll find that someone who might be able to afford a Kia now and wins the lottery, and buys themselves a Pagani is going to be the same person after that. It's not that they will change just because they suddenly have a Pagani in their life, right? Mm-hmm. So that is, in a nutshell, what success is. It's happiness. Success is in here. If you're happy in your heart, if you're successful in your heart, then everything else is fine. Then you need nothing else in life.
Wow, that's opened up so many questions as we were literally going through. That's opening up so many questions for me, because if it's not about getting to the point where you no longer are seeking validation, if it's not about money, and if it's not about the person that's got a Passat, but now they've actually got the Pagani, but yet they're not happier, but there was a reason why they wanted to get the Pagani in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying getting the Pagani will make them happy, but I'm saying they were not happy with the Passat anyway, and now they've got the Pagani, they're also not happy. But if it's not about them making more money, and if it's also not about them not seeking validation, like what then is, I guess the next question is not what is success, what is happiness? Mm. And how does is happiness something different for different people? And like, how do you attain that then?
I mean, there's different ways to define happiness, right? There's happiness that people will associate with excitement, with something really amazing having happened just now. And there's a lot of stuff going on in their bodies that will make them happy, right? All these positive neurotransmitters, etc. That is the temporary happiness that doesn't last. It's like taking drugs, being on a high, but then you have the low and you have that to contend with. So you're next again. And we live in a completely dopamine overloaded world. We're constantly chasing the next hit. And I'm not just talking about drugs, right? We want more and more and more. Our text messages, we were talking earlier, right? That sound the text messages make. Or if you're learning a language with Duolingo, can I mention Duolingo on here? A little bit of advertisement.
No free ads, no, I'm joking.
All these little sounds, they trigger you. They make you happy for a little moment. The reason you go on learning this language, which in itself is a good thing, but the reason you go on is because you get addicted, right? You want more and more and more of this little device that you hold in your hand telling you you're amazing, because maybe a person hasn't done it. Again, back to what I said before, right? But, sorry, I'm jumping a little bit.
No, it's so good.
Other side of happiness is contentment. What I would call contentment, what in yoga, for example, would be called bliss. Bliss, I don't actually want to say, because bliss is maybe something that people will associate more with in our current world, right? Associate more with that excitement, right? When I hear bliss, I'm like, God, I'm lying at the beach. I'm feeling so good. That's a temporary state, right? I'm not always at the beach. In fact, it's been a while since I've been at a beach. But contentment means that nothing in the outside world can change what's going on in here. Nothing at all can change who you are. Contentment is, no matter whether you have a lot of money or you have no money, no matter who has passed away in your circle of friends, you have learned to detach everything that's going on around you from what's going on in here. Because you know that it isn't important and that everything is temporary, that nothing lasts forever. And that's happiness.
Okay, interesting. I mean,
I think if you'd asked me before, and I could have prepared, I could have given you a much better answer.
I don't want you prepared.
And I don't like preparing. That's all good. It's all good. But now you're getting what you got.
Exactly. Which is wonderful, and we're definitely going to hopefully get time to touch on that later on as we go further in. But what I want to just get a better understanding is more about yourself and your journey. You know, where you've been, how you started off, and where you are today. And I always like to start with, just understanding you. Let's say, when, who was Bassanti when she was like a little girl?
Oh, good question. Do you know what? I've never been asked that question before. I'm just going to open up now. I think quite bitter, maybe nihilistic. I wouldn't say arrogant, but just looking at other people and their what I deemed stupid conversations that wouldn't bring the world forward, that were completely insignificant, and yet they were there and they were talking. And that's me at like 7 to 10 years of age,
At
just
7?
kind of, completely thinking, why the hell are these people saying these things? Why are they here? What are they doing? And as children, obviously, you get all of these questions, right? From, you've grown, to, would you play a little bit of it on the piano, to all these things. And I just, some children don't mind, some children don't like being a performing monkey, but it just came down to me just looking at, I always felt like I was on the outside looking in at this experience of life and other people and how they were behaving. And not that I would ever have put it into those words back then when I was 7 years old, but at the way that people play roles, that they think they can, they believe in themselves so that other people believe the roles that they play. So I can't say I didn't have friends. I had friends.
And it was very easy for you to see. You could see like, no, these people this is just play acting. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
At the age of 7.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where does that come from?
I have no idea, but I always felt different. And I could say that maybe that's because I grew up in Germany with my mum being German and my father being Indian. But then I have a sister who's 2 years older than me and is very different, very, would consider herself much more German as well. Mm-hmm. I always felt like something different. And I love language, but I always found that language was inadequate. And I thought that maybe that would have been different if I'd been German growing up in Germany. But I don't think that's the case. I think language is always inadequate and we never really get across exactly what we want to get across because there's so much more that we say, that we feel in here that this brain can't pick up on, right? But that's who I was as a child, just, not necessarily an unhappy childhood, just maybe, I guess, a different childhood, a childhood that was more about observing the weirdness of people and maybe being conscious of the fact that I didn't want to play those roles. And then something changed, I think, when I was 13, 14 years old or something like that, when I went on to a sort of a study holiday in Ireland, County Mayo, and I didn't know anyone. So it was a summer, 6 weeks or something in the summer holidays. Didn't know anyone. It was obviously to learn the language better. Everyone else who went there went with someone else, their best friend, their cousin, their brother or sister. And I went alone. So I was forced to meet people. And the way you meet people is to have stupid conversations that I didn't really want to have, So I started having these stupid conversations, came out of it knowing every single person and having made really great friends. And actually realizing, yes, these conversations that I have with people are not going to change the world, but that's okay because I made connections and I realized how much I am like these people, that we are not any different. So that was quite a revelation for me, but it took a while, made me into a very different person. The way I grew up in my family, we all talk a lot. My dad would never stop talking. And sometimes he would realize and he would say, but I do this so that when I'm gone, you will have got all of these conversations with me. And he's right. Yeah. He's been gone for a few years and I'm happy that I've got all of these experiences and that I've got all of these memories of conversations with him that I wouldn't have had. And he did this because his father wasn't like that. He never talked. Partly it was a different generation. Partly it was because his father was fighting in the war in Burma, in the British Indian Army. You don't talk about those sorts of things. Same with, Nazi Germany. People in that generation don't talk about what they experienced. Very different generation, very different experience. And again, something, some people would, imitate exactly the way that their parents were and not talk at all. Other people would do the opposite. So back to how are we the way that we are and why do we do the things we do? And that is essentially, that is what would be called, and you're probably familiar with that, hedonic adaptation. Something happens to you. Let it be something great, like you win the lottery. If you're a miserable person to begin with and you win the lottery, that might make you happy for a few months, maybe a year. But after a certain amount of time, call it a year, you go back to your baseline. You go back to exactly the person that you were before. Something terrible may happen. You may end up in a car crash, in a wheelchair, etc. Can't walk, can't speak anymore. You are of a very, glass half full disposition. You will go back to that as well after a while. So nothing that ever happens to us really changes the core of who we are. Something in there is going to stay.
Can I ask you a question?
No.
What are we doing here?
Where are we here?
On the way in, I was listening to a podcast, and I've been listening to this guy now for the past couple of weeks, just fascinated by it. So he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. His name is Terrence Howard. Have you heard of him? Terrence Howard. So you probably have. He's been in I'll say you probably have, I don't know actually, but he's been in he's been in a few movies. He's been in Empire. And a few other movies like Iron Man and all this sort of stuff, right?
Right. Okay. Yeah, then I probably know.
And then it turns out this guy's like some mathematical genius.
Yeah.
Like he's literally, well, in my estimation anyway, he's literally rewritten, the mathematical formula, the way that the world has been seeing it, saying this is actually correctly incorrect. And he's got 97 patents and flipping, he's brought all of this. He's invented a new way of flight. So the flights can actually, anyway, it's crazy. Look into it.
Nice.
But taking it back, I'm loading up the question. Don't worry. All right. Now he says he remembers when he was 6 months old in his mom's belly.
Yeah.
He says he remembers it, and he remembers just kind of waking up, and then a voice just saying to him, "Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget." Right? Don't forget, don't forget. And there's this thing, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called the Tree of Life. And scientists have been trying to unlock the code of the Tree of Life for people like Einstein, Galileo, all of these people trying to unlock it. And he's now been able to unlock it. And it basically reveals the mathematical formula for, the way the world actually works. And we've always gone by these straight line models, but actually there are no straight lines in the universe. It's all spirals and waves, right?
Yeah.
And this is what he's now revealed. But he said he's just always known this. He's like, I'm not smart. He got really terrible scores when he was at school. I've just always known this. He believes in reincarnation. He believes he's been here before. And, that voice that came to him when he was 6 months old was just telling him, remember, what you're coming to do in this world sort of thing. Do you believe in reincarnation? Yeah. Just because of the story that you just said about yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I don't want to say you went normal, but, but at the age of 7, to be able to just look at people and just be like, this is all just nonsense. Do you know what I mean? Do you believe in reincarnation?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's so many things that science hasn't got a grasp on yet. Yeah. And we just need to catch up. Science is human beings, right? And we are completely fallible. We're just not there yet. Yeah. And the things that we can't imagine, the things that are too big for us, we don't have words for, we don't know how to grasp. The things that are there in front of us, the things that we can see, we think are tangible. This body here, right? I can touch myself. I can feel this. That's tangible. Is it really? What is it?
Well, scientifically, no, from what we know, because it's all energy, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, time to me is cyclical. And yes, there is reincarnation. It's just about how do we define this? And that's again, back to language being inadequate, talking about what is religion, what is spirituality, what is reincarnation, for want of a better word. We have chosen this as a word. It doesn't do what actual reincarnation is justice, because you can't put something in a word, and words are loaded because people have different associations with that. Loads of stuff is going on in the head when someone talks about religion, when someone talks about God. We have given a name to something that we don't understand, and we don't understand anything in this world. I mean, I want to check out this guy, Terrence, because he sounds amazing. You should get him on the podcast.
I'll try.
But yes, I do. And I think the old scriptures, the Mahabharata, the Bhagavad Gita, are full of all of this knowledge and wisdom. One example would be a story of Abhimanyu, who's in his mother's womb while she is pregnant, surrounded by her husband's many people who are discussing a sort of fictitious war theater and how to get out of this situation without losing your life. And it's a tricky situation. There doesn't seem to be an answer to it. They're discussing it. And as Abhimanyu listens, he falls asleep. And years later, in the epic battle of Kurukshetra, which is all about which is when the Bhagavad Gita is set, he is in exactly that scenario in real life, and he loses his life because he doesn't know how to get out of the situation. So that just tells you how much back then, ages ago, was known about what happens before you're born, right? That does leave a mark. Mm-hmm. You're not a sentient being the moment you get into this world. We always think, and it's the same with dying. We die all the time. We die every day. Cells get born and die every day. The moment that someone breathes their last breath, they die for us. So it's like one day they're alive, the next day they're dead. That's not how it is. It's all a process. Even if your death is very sudden because you die in a car crash or something like that. It's not that you were this person in one moment and nothing the next moment. You don't just go away. There's all these energies. And what happens to that energy? Where does it go? Does it leave? In Hinduism, you say goodbye to the soul. And soul may be consciousness, right? And we are all conscious. Where does that consciousness go once our heart stops beating? That something will stay.
Yeah.
We might not define it. Science might not be able to explain it yet. But that doesn't mean science won't be able to explain it. We're just not there yet.
But there are no examples in nature that we can see of nothingness, right? This is kind of what Terence talks about as well. Nothingness, it goes, the number 0 does not exist in nature.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you'll really be fascinated by him. So you're looking into his stuff.
And you know what? I mean, so one example would be, think of a flower that you've got in a flower pot on your terrace.
Sorry, it's called the flower of life, not tree of life.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Oh, nice. So think of this flower that is growing and blooming and looking beautiful. Does that flower, when it dies, just go? The roots are still there. What happens to the roots? Mm-hmm. The roots of the flower. And then the flower grows again. So we know all of these things. We know that flowers bloom and die and bloom again. We know that about all the plants. Why are we as human beings so different? We can't just see this. We can't see how we are part of that same cycle as well. Because we may look different. We may have different energies in us, but something stays the same, right? Consciousness is not something that was ever born. It just existed. The soul was never born. That's what Hinduism says. The soul was never born, hence it can never die. And consciousness is something that is there. The universe is there.
Wow. Powerful. Okay. Let's go back a little bit. So now you're 13.
My weird life and my crazy arrogance.
We've just gone left a little bit. So now you're 13, you've realized actually maybe these people are not completely stupid. Maybe it's actually okay to just have conversations, right? So like how does these two live? Because it's actually good to have both of these experiences, right? Because you can understand the very nature of humans, which is, well, actually humans can just be a little bit weird and they can talk things that are totally relevant when compared to everything going on in the world. But also there's this need for relationship, for bond, to actually getting to know people. So it's not really a dichotomy. Both of these two things can exist. How do you feel like that has formed, the trajectory of your life moving forward?
Well, if you know me now.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. When you said that statement, I was like, this does not sound like Bassanti.
I know, it's the exact opposite of what I am now, right? I love talking. I love listening to people. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with not being someone who emotes. There's nothing wrong with being quiet. I love that too. But I just love having conversations. They could be about anything and everything. They can be deep and meaningful. They can be about the weather. I don't care. That's connections, right? That is people talking to each other, making a connection, getting to know each other. And what we say is not important. It's how we say it and how we connect. Do we look into each other's eyes? We were talking about how I don't like speaking on the phone because then you have your energy in this room. I can look into your eyes if I look on Zoom, but it's different. It's completely different, right? Yeah. So yeah, I love it. I was a completely changed woman at the age of whatever it was, 14, 15 or whatever. And just embrace having conversations, meeting new people, love it. I get so much out of it. I find it completely inspiring because everyone has their own story to tell.
Yeah.
So God, I don't know what was wrong with me back then.
How did you get on at school? Not like younger school. So now that we're kind of progressing, so like college, uni, all of that sort of stuff.
Good. I think I always put a lot of pressure on myself to be better and do more. My parents never did. My mom was an English teacher at a grammar school, and she always said things like, well, there's more important things than school. If I didn't want to go to school, she's retired now, I can say whatever I want. If I didn't want to go to school, she said, okay, no problem. I did little things. Do you know, I sometimes got bored of school. I would do things that I liked. I live by that now as well. I don't do something that I don't enjoy. I don't do something that I don't believe in. That's why before I started my own company, I changed jobs every single year because I just didn't believe that what I was doing was right for me. That the people that I worked for had any sense.
So maybe that little girl's still in there.
Not holding back. Yeah, exactly. A bit of that, the core of who I am. But yeah, it wasn't that. So my mom never gave me any trouble. My dad, you'd think an Indian dad was maybe very strict. God, no, complete opposite. I mean, he was a complete free spirit because if he hadn't been, he probably would have stayed in India, but he didn't. He went to Germany, met my mom, got married, never went back again. Or did, always, but lived in Germany all his life. And
so what do you think that 'cause you mentioned you were very not so much competitive, but you put a lot of pressure on yourself at school, even though your mom clearly didn't, not that she didn't care, she was obviously an educator, but there wasn't that pressure coming externally.
Yeah.
Where does that drive come from within yourself?
Do you know what? Competition is a funny thing. I think most people compare themselves to others and find that is competition, like doing better than the other person, keeping up with the Joneses, that sort of thing. That's never been me. Ever. I couldn't care what other people do. Yeah. But I know what my goals are and I want to achieve them. So if I know I could have done better in this test, then I wanted to do better. And it would go from mathematics, for example. I loved Embrace. It came very natural to me. But sometimes I would fail a particular test just because I didn't care or I didn't really like that particular topic. And then I didn't mind that. But if I knew that what I did in this particular test, and I really loved it, was wrong, just like one tiny little mistake, I would beat myself up over it. And again, my mom would be like, but it doesn't matter. And my dad would be like, but it's okay. The only thing you need to be is happy in life. Just be happy. And so that I would say I was quite driven when I wanted to be, when I saw the sense in what I was doing. And same at university. I started university just because you kind of start university if you don't know what else to do. I think lots of people go through university and get a degree just because they don't. Yeah, same here. I mean, at some point I enjoyed it, but what I actually wanted to do was be on stage. So I did some auditions at drama school. I also had singing lessons and classical singing training, and that's where I saw myself. And on the side, I went to university and I studied something that I really didn't.
Side study.
Yeah. And I thought, well, I'm going to stop that once I'm in one of the drama schools. And you know what? I'm so glad that didn't work. I told myself after like the 4th, 5th drama school audition that didn't work out, but where I got so close that they actually said to me, come back next year, we'll take you. And that's not really what they're supposed to say and what they say. But they really wanted me, but I was quite young. There was someone else, same type, etc. And they're basically trying to create an ensemble, right? So they can't take two people who are too similar. And she was older. That was her last chance. I was maybe 18, 19 at that time. So they said, come back next year. And at that point, I thought, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my life? Like constantly having these auditions again and again, and all this stress that brings. And I thought, no, actually, maybe not, but maybe yes. And you can't decide these things at that age, right? You just don't know. Your brain isn't fully formed yet. You don't know where you're going to go. And so I said to myself, I'm going to apply to a Fulbright scholarship. I won't get it, but that's good because I won't get it. And that means that this is the right path for me. And if I get it, I won't do another drama school audition. And then obviously I got the scholarship because I didn't care for it. and then I didn't do another drama school audition. I went to the US with that. Made a short film because I basically, at that point, I'd had all the credits. I could basically do whatever I wanted. And Fulbright is an interesting one because you're getting paid by whatever government of the country you live in. And then the German, for me, the German Bundestag and the American Congress. So they want you to be an ambassador to your country. They do not want you to study. They want you to, they literally want you to party. That is what they want.
Propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. It started after the Second World War. So that's where it was coming from. Just like intercultural exchange, realizing what other cultures do, how they are different, how they're the same. And, so what I did was exactly that. And I did this directed study program, so one-to-one with a professor that teaches you, in my case, film directing, storyboarding, writing, and then I made a short film there. And that was fantastic because it made me realize this is what I want to do. Like my form of creativity is writing rather than me needing to be on stage and performing. So that was really great. But after that experience, I kind of really enjoyed what I did at university, and I read more for fun for university rather than I have to get through this book because there's going to be a test or something on it. Yeah, driven when I needed to be, I guess, when I saw the sense in it, when I loved what I was doing.
I was going to come back to that. Do you think that because of the I guess the leeway that your parents gave you, that's actually what allowed you to be driven? Because it can happen in two ways, right? I also know the opposite to be true. Obviously coming from an African background, we know that, African and Asian parents can be quite, really demanding in terms of, you've got to do this. And people actually get results that way as well, right? So people actually, they get focused and all of that. Now, the reasons for doing so might be different. It might not be internal, it might be external, but nonetheless, they still get the results. But what do you, because I want to understand that, because sometimes when people have a rope, they will hang themselves with it. Like, okay, cool. My parents said, I'm not going to go to school. I'm just going to chill. Like, why do you think that internal motivation still came? Was it just, okay, cool, well, I don't have any restrictions, so I'm only doing this because I want to get better?
God, I think back to what you are born with, and what drives you is not just the experiences that you have. Some people get bullied, and that's what drives them to succeed, because they want to prove to these bullies that they are worthy. Some people just constantly get told that they're amazing, and that's why they think I have to now achieve amazing things because everyone believes that I'm going to do that, So I think it is about who you are, what you are born with. I think I have no idea, to be honest. I think it's, maybe I'm not self-reflective enough.
Maybe it just comes natural. I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be an explanation for it. If there wasn't, because sometimes, people remember a certain moment, that triggered, okay, you know what, this is, always going to achieve. Like, no one's going to stop me because of this thing, because this is what's driving me. But it might just be something that's just, like you said, internal, right? You didn't have anyone sort of pushing you. You just decided for yourself. Yeah,
I think you're right. I mean, I don't think there was any kind of particular moment in my life where I was like, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Now I'm driven. It's really like, for me, the motivation comes from the why. Why am I doing what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And is there a bigger picture? And the bigger picture is not, I want to earn loads of money. I want to drive that car. I do, like, I mentioned the Pagani because I am a fan of cars, but I'm trying to unlearn that.
Yeah.
But I also know that for me, a car is not a status symbol. It never will be.
Why do you need to unlearn it though? If you like cars, and you like that. I don't know about Pagani, but maybe it's the engine you like, maybe it's the speed, maybe it's whatever. Just because it's expensive, does that you're not doing it because it's material?
Thing. Exactly. It is other things. It may be the feeling that it gives you to drive that fast car, for example. But then the feeling that it gives you to drive that fast car is something that you shouldn't constantly change. So I think rein in all the want. I mean, that is what mindfulness essentially tells you, and that is what any kind of that is what religion preaches as well.
So
any
does that
religion,
mean
right?
Then I can't enjoy my life because
you can, but don't get attached to it. Okay. So have the holiday, do that bungee jump, but don't enjoy it in the moment. Don't immediately afterwards have the low and think, God, I need to do this immediately again. That is what breaks us. Wanting more and more and more leads to addiction. And we live in a world that fosters that addiction because that is how things get sold. That is how money is being made. And if you reject certain things, then that will lead you to aversion. It will lead you to radicalization. It will lead you to be inherently unhappy with your life, stereotypes, biases that you have, racism, misogyny, all of these things trigger your amygdala. They make you unhappy. So that center for stress and emotion in the brain, if I can call it that, that's very simplistically put. But that does not make you happy. So stay away from all the things you dislike. They don't make you happy. Stay away from all the things you not like, but the things you love, the things you crave, have them in moderation. Enjoy them in the moment rather than having more and more and more. The more you have, the less you enjoy them anyway, right?
What did you study at uni then when you went to...
So I studied...
Or was it a postgrad you did or undergrad?
It was both. So I finished with a master's. So I studied something called North American Studies Program, which was an interdisciplinary studies program where you could choose exactly what you were majoring in, essentially. So we had anything from law to economics, politics, history, art history, all geared towards America, North America, so US and Canada, but definitely with more of a focus on the US.
Sorry about that.
I know, right? Yeah, it was really hard to get the courses on Canada. There was so much more in the US, and that's also why I ended up there, right?
Yeah.
So my focus was on politics and history, with then my master's being about. So it was called, the master's thesis was called Diwali and Dancehall, Indian and or moments of identity in the Indian diaspora in the US. And Diwali and Dancehall I chose because these are two things that have been, I would say, I don't want to say appropriated because that holds a lot of, negative connotations as well, subsumed by the American mainstream. Dancehall obviously started, has its roots in Jamaican reggae.
Yeah.
Diwali is a Hindu festival, but it's very much celebrated very widely outside of the Hindu community, right? So that was my thesis, that in this Indian diaspora, there is a hybrid space for you to become different, to choose, to have the luxury to choose who you want to be, to create your own identity. And I really enjoyed that. I think that's what we should all do. We should embrace who we are, where we're coming from, but then also let go of that, because it doesn't matter who you are at the end of the day. If you really want to be happy, you let go of who you are. You let go of your identity. It's sitting somewhere in your prefrontal cortex and that very evolved part of the brain that is like your brain CEO making all the decisions. And it's sometimes helpful, but it's also very hindering because identity is often made up through an other. It's us versus them. It's me versus everyone else. When actually you should realize that you are like everyone else. The things that bind us are so much more important than the things that push us apart. There is no us and them at the end of the day, right? We're having a conversation right now. Our brains are connected.
Wow. That's powerful. So is that, but what you studied, you said was economic and politics, right?
And politics and history of the US.
Politics and history of the US. But it feels to me that, I don't know, your mind was somewhere else though. Because you spoke about that, but you just kind of moved to connectedness and, and who we are. And naturally, like, it's like, no. So was that like, even back then, like the real obviously you were studying this, but were you trying to psychoanalyze it from like your lived experience? And obviously like that 7-year-old girl just looking at the world is a little bit crazy. Is this always something that you've just kind of taken along with you in terms of how you process the world and everything else?
I think everything you do and everything you experience in life leaves a mark on your brain, and it doesn't go. Some things you remember better than others, but even the things you don't remember are somewhere there. And sometimes the things you don't remember are the more important ones because they're somewhere in your subconscious, maybe causing havoc. I mean, that's how trauma works, right? That is why people need therapy, if they do, because there are so many things that we are unaware of. If we just go through our whole life being aware, then we're sorted. Then nothing can happen to us, because whatever happens to us, we know it's happening. And we don't have to go back on a situation that we were in and think about why it is that we acted a certain way, why this person said that, why that person said this, why you reacted. You know, it's everything that has happened in my life, everything that happens in someone's life makes you who you are. And the more aware you are of what you do and what you have experienced, the better the decisions that you are going to make.
Yeah.
So yes, I think everything that I've done there, but that doesn't mean that you can't achieve your flow state in something that has nothing to do with anything, right? You can dive into a completely new topic, and I love that. I mean, in many ways, I will always want to be a generalist. That doesn't mean that I can't dive into topics and get deeper and deeper and deeper into them. But I think it's important to keep the bigger picture in mind, because if you don't, then you see in terms of health, in terms of yoga, in terms of Ayurveda, two sides of the same coin, right? You cannot look at, if you're a heart specialist, you need to look at the whole body. You cannot just know your tiny little piece of research, your tiny little area of research. You need to know more, especially when it comes to the human existence. There is no, it's a myth if you think that what you're doing is independent from anything else out there. Quantum physics is yoga. Yoga is epigenetics. Yoga is everything. And everything else is everything as well. Quantum physics is not its own thing. It's connected to philosophy. And anyone who is going deeper into their subject will realize that. That is why Einstein said the things that he said. That is why Terence, I forgot his last name, Terence Howard is saying the things that he's saying. That is probably also why he is an actor, because that is his way of expressing what is inside of him, what he can only express in that way when he finds that language or the way that he's expressing other things is inadequate for the emotion that he feels.
Well, no, he's an actor because his mom wanted his younger brother to be an actor. I didn't really get a lot of attention from his mom.
I see.
So he felt like the only way that he could really get her attention was to be an actor. And
oh my God.
He became very successful.
But he's still doing it, right?
Exactly.
He's still doing it.
But
so there's a reason for that.
The ability to actually, be a good actor comes from all these things that you're kind of talking about. So there still could be a connection.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing again, right? Why are people motivated to do that? One of my best friends is very successful in many things that she does, both in her job, also in politics. She is driven because of her history. That has made her the person that she is. That drives her to be successful again and again and again. Until she's outgrown that, she can't be happy. Right? That needs to be something that she needs to deal with. And lots of actors are like that. Not everyone, but I think everyone who is an actor wants to find out something about themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And about other people. They're very interested in other people and their experiences as well. Yeah. Right? You have to.
There's enough examples that they're not all the full package.
No, but who is, right?
That's true. But they're just more in the limelight, right? Just kind of going back to, what type of jobs? Because you mentioned you were, pretty much going from job to job because, you weren't going to stay with something that you're not happy with. What type of jobs were you doing first? And then how did you eventually come back to find your home? Like, look, because it seems to me like this stuff has been with you pretty much your whole life, right?
Yeah.
How did you eventually decide to transition to what you're doing now?
So yoga has always been a part of my life, really. I learned from my father when I was 4 years old. He learned from his grandfather when he was a child. That is kind of how it is in India. You kind of learn from your family and practice with someone in your family. That was mostly asana practice. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but physical posture, breathing, etc. Meditation as well. For me, meditation took a much longer time. That took forever. I think it was only about 10, 15 years ago when I found my way into meditation, because the timing needs to be right. But yeah, my first job after university was, I had about 6 months of sort of finding after my master's and before my first job that I had lined up, which was actually at the European Union. And in that time, I had two options. I was either going to go traveling, but that didn't materialize because most of my friends were either not quite finished with their master's yet, or they were going on to do their PhD, so they didn't have time. And I thought, okay, fine, not going on a tour around the world by myself. This is a bit boring. Since I'm now a person who likes other people.
How about the 7-year-old?
Walking the earth like Cain. But yeah, so I decided to just look into other industries that had always fascinated me, industries that I could have imagined being happy in, just to see, just to be able to make a more informed decision, knowing that maybe the EU is for me, having experienced other things. So I went to work in film. I worked at a film company where I was supposed to actually just do work experience for a week or two, but I stayed on for much longer. I think for that whole time. Actually, I had a few other things before that, but it was quite a few months. And I absolutely loved it. I adored it. They're actually now one of my clients, my long-standing client. I think I've had them for 10 years and have been teaching them yoga for that time. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. Realized that the European Union was not for me at all. And I think that's because when you're an idealist, you should not be in politics. that is that in a nutshell. Enough said. I know, right? So I got out of there, went to India, and I spent some time there working in an advertising agency, for example, just kind of experiencing what it's like being a copywriter, being creative. And I think that was something that was really defining for me, because I realized that I need to be creative. I think if you are a creative person, and I am, then that is the only thing that's going to make you happy. Again, not money, not fame, not anything like that. I've never chased that. I've always wanted to be creating things. And I think my parents at an early age just, really promoted that. They never wanted something bought. I mean, when you're 4 years old, you don't have money, right? But even at 10 and even now, we might get them something like a token little thing. But it gets harder as well because we're all time poor, aren't we? But when they want something made for birthdays, for Christmases, etc., that takes a while, but we still do it religiously. We just give them something, or now my mum, because my dad passed away, she will get something that we have made, that we have created with our own hands. Most of the time it's something funny, like little anecdotes or something like that. But that is a really great way to express, for me, that is a great way to express myself. And it makes me very happy, because if you see the result, like if you have a to-do list, you're a project manager or something like that in a big company, what do you actually do? You have all these, you can tick these boxes of done this and that, been in 5 meetings or 10 meetings or 20 that day. But what does that get you? Like, that doesn't make me happy. And if you're a creative person, you need to find that. So unfortunately, after that, when I came back to London, I thought, well, I think I did go for I applied for a grad scheme at an advertising agency, but I didn't get that. Applied for other grad schemes and basically ended with a grad scheme at HSBC, stayed there for a year, went on to another sort of higher, more demanding, I guess, scheme at Lloyd's Banking Group, stayed there for a year as well, or just under a year. It's always that 1 year mark. Didn't like it either. In fact, I hated it. And then left and just became a freelance scriptwriter for film and television. Or I should say for film, then properly, like for a television channel or for a company that provided a particular TV series, long-standing series where I was basically trained to be creative on a daily basis, which was amazing. And that's actually a very good thing for film as well, because people then realize, oh, you've been paid for doing this, because anyone can call themselves a writer for films, you know, and everyone wants to be, especially if you're in maybe London, LA, that sort of thing, you know. But if you have been paid for that, if that was your job, your 9-to-5 job, then that's great. But more important than that, it actually gets you into the habit of being creative. So I really enjoyed that. But I also realized that maybe if I stayed for too long, it wasn't just the kind of type of thing that they did was changing a little bit. But I also realized if I stay for too long, then I'm going to just keep doing it because I like it. But there's more stories in me. And there is. I mean, I'm working on one at the moment. But round about that time, when I was doing this freelance work for other people's films and their visions, I realized I don't want to just say yes to all of these projects because I don't believe in them. I had some really crazy, stupid things that I did just because they paid well, and I really didn't believe in the project. And you can then say, well, I don't want my credit I don't want credit for this. I just take the pay and that's fine. But it didn't make me happy because those weren't my stories at all. And it wasn't my vision. So I thought it would be nice to do something that would allow me to still write on the side, but do something that is more fulfilling for me. And that was round about the time when my sister wanted to not stay in her job after her second child, when things had changed. She'd had 10 years office experience in mostly business development, but other industries as well, or other things as well. And then we decided to start something together. My dad came up with the glorious idea that we should do corporate yoga, and I said, I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to make money from yoga. That's kind of not how I think it should be. And he said, well, other people are going to do it, so you might as well, because you're going to do it better. And I thought, yeah, you know what? He has a point, because I'd already gotten annoyed at the yoga classes that I went to that had, in my opinion, nothing to do with what yoga actually is. They were, to me, vacuous gymnastics classes, completely taken out of context, yoga-inspired workouts. You know, and then I thought, well, I can do better than that, because I know why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. I know what the end goal is, which is liberation and losing attachments and becoming happy. And who wouldn't want to be happy? If you live in London, chances are you're not happy, because you see so many things around you. It's all the stresses, the noise, the people you compare yourself with, the demands at work, 24-hour news, everything in this world is almost like it's designed to make you unhappy. So that you numb yourself by buying more and more and more stuff to make you happy in the moment. But obviously that just puts a plaster on something, on a deep wound that's going to keep festering.
But if I'm doing yoga, the vacuous version that you're talking about, yeah, then,
it's a start.
Then there's a meditative element to it. I've never done yoga, by the way. I've done, what's the other one? Not yoga.
Pilates?
Oh my goodness. During COVID, I had this app, and, it would tell me what to do every single day. And some of the sessions was Pilates. I don't know how Pilates is just what women do, this Pilates stuff, just stretching. Oh my
Pilates
goodness.
is hard. Oh my God.
Oh my goodness. What? What? Oh, this is crazy. But yes, there's like a meditative element to it, I assume, right? So, but I would imagine when you're talking about happiness, I'd imagine, that has some sort of effect. So what's different between, the type of, I guess, mainstream yoga versus what Pathak yoga does?
I think the main difference is that I explain why we're doing the things we're doing. I'm not saying all the mainstream yoga classes are wrong and they have no clue. I wouldn't dare to say that.
It's fine, just own it. Just listen, you understand? Like, just,
Look, there is a lot of misconceptions out there. There's a lot of ignorance out there. There is a lot of people who don't know how to teach yoga, and they call it that. And if you have you can have an 80-hour teacher training, right? And call yourself a teacher after that. That is not how it works. You should do a master's in yoga. You should do a PhD in yoga. These things exist in India. They are unheard of here, right? People do these teacher trainings, and I've grown to hate this word, teacher training. What does that even mean? It means learn a tiny little bit so that you can pass some information on to people or make them happy in the moment. But main thing, you make money from it. That is not what it should be like, right? I'm not doing this to make money from it. I happen to make money from it, and I live in a world that's also, I've got bills, but this is not the reason. I want to make people healthy and happy. So the difference is that when I go into offices, I will start from the basics. I'm not going to tell people how pretty they are on the inside or how beautiful they look and how the love inside of them should shine out and these sorts of things. That's unhelpful, right? If you've got this A-type personality sitting in front of you and they've never done yoga before, they are expecting you to be a spiritual person, not knowing what that means, right? I would call myself a spiritual person, but I can define that in a very different way than how other people would say. And also, maybe they don't even know how to define it. They just think that maybe burning a bit of incense is spiritual, right? But I will start from the basics. Do your shoulders hurt? Does your neck hurt? Can I alleviate all the pain that you have from maybe having sat at a desk all day? Can I maybe also change the language around it and tell you that tension headaches and backaches and musculoskeletal disorders have a little bit to do with how we're talking about them? Like if I'm raising awareness of these issues that you may have. If in Pilates, for example, I'm telling you, protect your back, so strengthen your core, what you're hearing is, my back is really weak. It better needs protection. So what you're going to think is, I need to watch out and, oh God, I already feel my back is hurting. The moment we mention something, like don't think of the pink elephant, you've got the image of the pink elephant in your head, right? So we need to be careful with our language. But just going into an office, making someone feel that what I've done here, how they are working, right? Where's their keyboard? How am I adjusting the workstation? How am I adjusting how they're sitting? Is this actually comfortable? Or are you more comfortable sitting like that? I'm not going to adjust my husband's posture because this is the posture he has. He doesn't have back problems, so everyone is different. So take that into consideration. Start from that basis. From there, once you've worked on stretching into someone's muscles, into someone's connective tissue, you will know that, that tension is gone, right? Because our stress response also means our muscles tense up. If I am stressed because there's a lion chasing me in the wild, our muscles will tense up because I need to run away. I need to be faster. It's not just all these stress hormones coursing through our body. We are basically made through our stress response to be more effective, to be running away or to fight, right? It's these two things, or to play dead, but that's a different thing. We don't do that so much anymore. But you see little bugs doing that, right? If they realize that you're watching them, they play dead so that you don't kill them or whatever. Back to what I do and how that's different. I pick people up where they are. I'm not going to tell them about enlightenment because that's too much, right? I'm not going to start with that. I'm going to make sure that they feel good in their body. Then I'm going to start telling them how they can breathe in order to activate their parasympathetic nervous system. So how can you take a gentle breath in and then just a slow, lovely, slow breath out, and immediately you will feel better because an exhalation is a function of your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest system that kicks in after a bout of stress. Last week for 2 minutes, you and I and about 20 other people in the room did a few little exercises, breathing exercises, just to calm ourselves down. I don't know, but the feedback I got was
really good. It was really, 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 and it was just 2 minutes.
And it was just 2 minutes, exactly. So it's not rocket science. In many ways, it is we have all the tools that we have inside of us that we need to make ourselves happy. Breathe properly, start from that. And then once that is established, right, that I'm getting rid of the stress response, I can start talking about how your brain waves will change from agitated to calm if you breathe a certain way. It's also about the saliva you secrete when you breathe a certain way and what that does to nerve growth factor, etc. So it's a super complex science, and we can talk about the science. And I do that in those sessions. Depending on who I have in front of me, I'll talk about the science. And if people don't need that because they already get it intuitively, then that's fine as well. If you feel it in your body, maybe I don't need to talk about the science. But that is all the short-term effects. Long-term, what you do is you change the architecture of your brain. You do that through the way you breathe. You do that through the way you hold yourself, right? If I'm raising my arms, I'm already happier, because that changes my center of gravity. It's really hard. Like if you're depressed, you're probably like this, or you feel like not getting out of bed and making yourself in fetus position. Whereas if you're adopting this stance, you will feel better after a few minutes. Even if you don't feel like it, do it. If you smile, it'll drive your brain into activity that's typical of happiness, because different neurons fire when you smile than when you're frowning, for example. Different neural passageways. And then neurons that it's super complex, but super fascinating.
Like wire together, fire together, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Joe Dispenza, have you heard of him?
Yes, of course. Yeah. That is the short-term effects. And you can see them on an MRI. Say you meditate or you do yoga, postures, movements, or even just a mudra, a hand gesture. For a certain time, there will be actual change in the architecture of your brain. You can see an MRI of the before and the 20 days later, and you'll see a change in you. You can see an MRI of a seasoned meditator, and it'll look very, very different. And that is what I talk about when I talk about yoga. And when I talk about enlightenment, that is essentially for me a certain signature, a certain look of the brain, which is characterized by less ego, or maybe no ego at all, no self, no sense of that identity that we don't actually need. A very strong prefrontal cortex, a functional connectivity to your amygdala, which we don't want to get rid of. We have 2 amygdala actually, which lots of people don't know. That's your center for stress, or called that. But it is there for a reason. We need it to keep us from dying. We need that, right? So I can explain all of these things, and to people that don't do yoga yet, these things are necessary. If people know the effect of it because they're leaning towards this, they're a certain type of person, then they will know it makes them feel good. They might not need anything more. But those people that need the science behind it, that are factual, that are logical, not that these people aren't, it's never either or, right? But this will help you understand why you're doing what you're doing. And then you might not question the things that you find a bit strange. Like there's one pranayama breathing exercise called Brahmri, or the humming bee, where you breathe in and you hum out. Some people laugh when they do that. I don't mind that. Laughing is quite healthy for the body. But if you know what it does to your body, that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Then you breathe in, you hum out. Then you can hum in as well, a little bit harder. And you do that and it changes everything, changes the whole, you get yourself into this calm state and very, very quickly. And it's a great way to create your own painkillers as well. I teach that to pregnant people because they will want that before it actually flushes your body right after birth, right?
Just don't do it in public, yeah?
Oh, do it. If it's on the loud tube, who's going to notice?
Right, it's just weird that next
Be weird. Embrace the weirdness.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, Bassanti, this has flown. The hour's just gone bang. I think we're going to have a second one. Because there's just so many more questions that I've got just based on, that little riff you just went on. But it's fascinating. And obviously I'm going to start, working with yourself as well. And we've spoken about, because I've spent time with you and I know that you know what you're talking about. You're
no, I don't really, but I try.
You're an expert in this field. You're an expert in this field for sure. So I'm looking forward to our journey together. But this has been absolutely incredible.
Same. Thank you so much for having me.
No, absolutely. Like I said, we've got 2 set questions.
Yes.
After the first one. So there's one more, because just kind of looking at your journey, and I think I probably know where this answer is going, but I never know. You never know. But with everything that you've, the trajectory that your life has taken so far, to this company that you guys now have over the past 10 years, which, any business that comes past the first year, it's already successful, right? 10 years is incredible. With everything that you guys have been able to achieve, like what is it that remains your need to succeed?
I think until I've achieved that goal, I need to keep going, right? And the goal is happiness for everyone. I mean, I can call it world peace. Let's go big, right? If that's the goal, then the way to achieve it is through liberation and enlightenment for everyone in this world. That's going to take a long time. That's not going to be in my lifetime. So I have a big, big goal. That is the goal. That's what I want to do. I can do the little that I can do, but I need to get that message out there. It's like the Dalai Lama, I think, said, if you teach a generation of children how to meditate, you can eradicate wars within a generation. And I truly believe that. We need to be aware of who we are, of our physical sensations, of what we're going through in this life in order to be kind to other people. And that is what it's all about. And then all of us are happy. Then we don't need all the other stuff. Then the whole world is going to change. but I need to because no one else is doing it. The reason I can is because I was told by my father. I taught by my father. I had all these old gurus that are long gone, and all the knowledge and the wisdom that they had, I don't want that gone. And that's not me and my ego wanting to send that out into the world, or me thinking I need to do right by them. It's because it's necessary. It's necessary for people's happiness. I mean, what are we doing to ourselves? It's like we're part of the matrix and we don't know it. That is how I feel sometimes. Why are we doing the things we're doing? We don't even know. We're constantly just numbing ourselves with all the things in this life. So until we have stopped doing that, my job isn't done. And that's how I always work. I talked to you about my screenplay that I'm working on at the moment, which is a rape revenge film that I want to make, not because I want to have my credit on there. In fact, I created a children's TV series that doesn't have my name on it because of lots of politics and someone with a massive ego, but that's fine. That's fine for me. I don't care at all. I'm doing this film because I want to see that film, because I find that this film needs to exist, because these films in that particular genre that I've seen are not doing it right. And I find that offensive. So I want to do that right. And I want to get the message of yoga out there to help, because I know if I don't do it, there's probably no one else.
Wow. Bassanti Pathak, thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
You are listening to the Need to Succeed podcast with Ibrahim Brahma. Make sure to like and subscribe for more episodes like this.